All right, so funny story, and I posted about this last week, I think, at this point. I totally skipped this episode entirely by accident. I went from using Disney Plus to determine the order of these reviews to using the site that I get the clips from. It's just easier to get everything from the episode files to the viewing experience of the episode itself from my computer, because I'm always at my computer. And I can watch Disney Plus on my computer, but I'm already on the website to download the clips. I might as well just watch the episode there, right? And when I went from using Disney Plus to determine the order of these to using the episode order on that site, some wires got crossed and I just accidentally skipped this episode. I thought I had done episode 5 as it was listed on that site already, but that was this, and I hadn't done it yet. So we're going back to knock this one out real super quick. And I do mean real super quick. I'm not going to dwell on this one too much because it was good. It was a perfectly fine episode. And according to the wiki, it's actually roughly an adaptation of one of the old comics that was also adapted into the original show. So that's cool. That's a really cool fun fact tidbit about this episode in particular. But I really got the sense that this one was more here to set up stuff to do with Lena. Because Lena's in this episode. And I was a little worried when I saw that because in airing order, this is placed right after her first appearance, if I'm not mistaken, right? So I was kind of worried that I really should have watched this one when her appearance in the show was fresher in my mind. Thankfully, that's not really the case. This doesn't really jump off of that episode at all, aside from the fact that you need to have seen it to know who she is. In fact, in terms of production order, this episode comes 5 episodes later than it did in airing order. So I don't think it actually matters, right? But I really feel like this was mostly here to just continue to set up stuff that's going to happen with her. And her part of the episode was comparably small compared to the episode overall. The plot of the episode mainly hinging on Webby and Huey. Huey's the red one, getting into an argument over whether or not Terra-Firmians, basically underground rock people, could possibly exist. She believes that they do, and she has a cute little, it's like it's not exactly a pop-up book, but it has like little slidey moving bits full of all of her various musings on all the supernatural things that she thinks are out there, which has entire sections about these things that she's written herself. And having just gotten out of a horror movie about mole men with her grandmother, the other boys, and Lena, as well as Launchpad, who actually got something to do kind of in this episode finally, which was very nice. She now wants to prove that these things exist. Huey wants to prove that they don't exist. He's taking the role of a skeptic, whereas she's more the molder of their little pair. And so they sneak, along with Lena, into an abandoned subway tunnel looking for these things, only for the other characters that I mentioned just now to follow them down and get involved in events. With Beakley disapproving of Lena, thinking that she's, I guess, too much of a delinquent would be the way to put it, the best way to put it, to be allowed around these kids who have so much potential, which came off as very judgmental, right? But basically what it boils down to is she sees Lena as a bad influence, right? But it felt like there was an almost classist undertone to it. And I promise I'm not gonna start ranting about how capitalism is bad again in this video. But I kind of got that sense when she talked about how the other kids had so much potential, implying that Lena would distract them from that just inherently by being around. It kind of felt like she was judging Lena for not being rich or from a rich family, which she frankly doesn't even know for sure is the case, because she doesn't know anything about Lena. She also clearly thinks that Lena is not a great person in general either. And so their arc in the episode is Lena proves herself and the judgment stops, only for it to be revealed that she only did so as part of her scheme to get into the McDuck mansion. So there's that. And I understand that Lena's a mostly sympathetic character, kind of. though one of the few things that's been spoiled for me about the finale. Let's just say I'm not looking forward to seeing Lena's development as much as I used to be. But for the most part, the show up to this point has portrayed her as kind of a gray character. And so it bums me out a little bit that Beakley was so judgmental of her, only for it to be shown in the end that she had every reason to be. It just rubbed me the wrong way. Meanwhile, Dewey and Launchpad have a little plotline. Launchpad is now terrified of mole people after seeing the movie. And you guys know how I have the thing about not explaining comedy in great detail because it spoils the comedy. This is one of those situations. Their plotline in this was hilarious. Go watch it. Not much more to say about that. Just Launchpad's brain, the way his brain works is hysterical to me. Which is obviously the point. It's a comedy plot. But like, yeah, it lands real hard. Just like he does whenever he crashes a plane. Meanwhile, Louie is hanging out with Huey and Webby, basically offering commentary on their conflict as their two ideologies clash. And frankly, whereas the Lena and Beakley plot kind of rubbed me the wrong way because I felt like it was, I don't know, saying some things that it didn't mean to say. I liked this plotline up until the very end. I liked the contrast between a more enthusiastic person and a more skeptical person in a world where supernatural elements are demonstrable, where they clearly exist. But it ended up with Huey revealing that he's afraid of those supernatural elements because they're not documented yet, and therefore he can't understand them. But he revealed earlier in the episode that each time they've come upon a supernatural element up to this point, he has documented it and recorded it so that it can be understood by himself and others going forward. And he has never shown this kind of fear in any of those other situations before. This isn't the first time he has encountered a supernatural element, even if you go by the airing order of these episodes. So I just don't buy that he is so paralyzed by fear up until the point that he's able to physically document the Terra-Firmians in his Junior Woodchuck's guidebook. In fact, I think it would have been much more interesting if their plotline had ended with Webby and Huey realizing that they're both doing the same thing, her by speculating about these things and then seeking them out, and him by documenting them when he comes upon them. They're just approaching the subject from different angles, really. But like I mentioned, this plotline up until the very end I thought was also very good, and Louie's various comments on their back and forth were pretty freaking funny. The Terra-Firmians themselves were pretty interesting. I don't understand why their designs are very clearly terrifying when they're in the dark, but then comparably innocent looking once they enter the light. I imagine it was probably to represent that the lack of knowledge about them made them seem more intimidating than they actually were. But it seemed kind of silly to me. But overall, they were interesting. And I thought it was an interesting parallel that they also seem to have misconceptions about surface dwellers. And they were even straight up colored like the 5 kids, implying that there's other parallels between the two groups as well. The episode seemed to be saying something, subtly, admittedly, about how fear and even anger can cloud your opinion of someone before you even know them. Getting to know someone, I mean, people are all just people, no matter how different they seem on the surface, even if those people aren't from the surface, which you could read into tying back to the Lena thing. Like, once you dig a little deeper, it turns out there's more to her than initially seen. But then, again, it turned out at the end that she was just taking advantage of these people still. So that still doesn't really line up super well, right? There's a lot going on in this episode, though. And I don't feel like... I mean, I guess Launchpad and Dewey's plotline was as developed as it needed to be hysterical. But again, I already said that the Lena stuff feels like it's just set up for later stuff. And I feel like they could have made an entire episode out of the Webby and Huey stuff. So at the end of the day, I don't really feel like the through lines of this episode, the various plot lines of this episode, were as developed overall as they could have been, because so much was going on here. And that did bum me out a little bit. And we did get to see Lena use, like, telekinesis magic, which was pretty freaking cool, and did further her character a bit, I guess. So that was neat. The Lena stuff, I feel like, could have been in another episode that focused more on Lena and what's up with her and Shadow Lady. And I feel like, as I already mentioned, the Huey and Webby stuff could have been its own episode. So, I don't know. I have mixed feelings about this one, I guess is the point. It's good, for sure. It's dramatic when it's supposed to be dramatic. It's funny when it's supposed to be funny. But I feel like there was potential for even more. As per usual, what do you guys think of the Terror of the Terra-Firmians? If you have seen it, let's get a discussion going in the comment section down below. And while you're down there, you might as well like the video, share it with anyone else you think might enjoy my content, and subscribe if you haven't. You can also check out my social medias, as well as all of the various ways that you can help out the channel. Links to that stuff will be in the video description. But either way, this has been AJ22, and I will talk to you guys later.